Hey, welcome back, everyone. So glad you're here with us today. I'm Elsie.
And I'm Evelyn. And honestly, today's topic, I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Same. Like when we were deciding what to talk about today, this name came up, and we both just kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, obviously. Obviously, we're doing this one.
Exactly, because there's a reason this person's name still comes up in conversations everywhere, at dinner tables, in music studios, on street corners across the world. And that name is Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, the king of pop. And today, we're not just going to scratch the surface. We're going in deep. His childhood, his genius, his pain, his controversies, his legacy, all of it.
Because this is a story that deserves to be told with full honesty. Not just the moonwalk and the sequin glove, but also the boy behind all of it.
So let's start at the very beginning, because where Michael Jackson comes from matters enormously to understanding everything that came after. And where he comes from is Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana, which, if you don't know it, is a gritty, working-class steel mill town. Not exactly the birthplace you'd picture for the most famous entertainer the world has ever seen.
Right, and Michael was born in 1958, the seventh of nine children, in a tiny two-bedroom house on a street called, and I love this, Jackson Street.
Jackson Street. I mean, it sounds made up, but it's real.
It's absolutely real. And this family, the Jacksons, they were squeezing into this little house with practically nothing. And the father, Joe Jackson, was a former boxer, a frustrated musician, and a man absolutely determined to claw his family out of poverty.
And he saw his way out in his kids, specifically in the raw, rough, completely unpolished talent of his children. And so he formed the Jackson 5. And that's where things get complicated.
Because the way Joe ran that household, especially those rehearsals, was brutal. We're not softening this. Joe would sit in a chair during practice with a belt in his hand. If someone missed a step, if a note went flat, the punishment was immediate and physical.
And Michael has spoken about this himself. He said his father instilled a fear in him that never really went away, ever. Even at the height of his fame, performing in front of hundreds of thousands of people without a single mistake, part of that drive came from fear of getting it wrong.
Which is heartbreaking when you think about it, because out of this really painful, frightening environment emerged one of the most extraordinary talents the world has ever witnessed.
By the time Michael was 8 years old, he was the lead singer of the Jackson 5. And the thing that blew people away was his voice. It had this emotional depth, this soulfulness that made absolutely no sense coming from the child that small.
He sounded like someone who had lived a full life of heartbreak and joy, and he was 8.
And then in 1968, the Jackson 5 signed with Motown Records. And just like that, little Michael was in the national spotlight. He was a child star. And everything looked magical from the outside. The synchronized dancing, the matching outfits, the huge smiles.
But behind all of that, there was a boy who didn't get to just be a boy. No birthday parties, no lazy summer afternoons, no just being a kid. All of that was replaced with rehearsals and stages and spotlights.
So fast forward to the teenage years, and this is where so many young stars fall apart completely. The transition from child star to adult artist is honestly a graveyard of ruined careers.
Oh, absolutely. The list of child stars who couldn't make that transition is painfully long.
For Michael, those teenage years were filled with deep insecurity. Puberty hit, his voice changed, he got bad acne, and he became very self-conscious about his appearance, particularly his nose. And his father, Joe, who was already not winning any parenting awards, would mockingly call him Big Nose in front of people.
His own father, calling him that.
His own father. And that wound went deep. It showed up for the rest of Michael's life in very visible, very painful ways that we'll get to.
But here's what's remarkable. Even while all of this personal turmoil was happening, musically, Michael was quietly brewing a revolution.
The Jacksons eventually left Motown for Epic Records because they wanted more creative control. And then came the moment that changed everything. Michael landed a role in the 1978 film The Wiz, playing the Scarecrow. And on that set, he met a man named Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, the legendary producer, and together they made Off the Wall in 1979.
Off the Wall was gorgeous. It was this perfect blend of disco, pop, and R&B. It sold around 20 million copies. It made it absolutely clear that Michael was not just a former child star writing nostalgia. He was a serious, heavyweight solo artist.
But here's the thing, and this is such a Michael Jackson moment. When Off the Wall didn't win the Grammy for Record of the Year, he didn't go celebrate its massive commercial success. He cried.
He genuinely cried, because to him, the industry was still not taking him fully seriously. They were still filing him away as either a former kid from a singing family or as an R&B artist, not a universal superstar.
And so, right there in that moment, he made a decision, a very quiet, very intense, almost terrifying decision.
He vowed that his next album would be the biggest selling record in the history of the world. He literally said, "They will not be able to ignore me again."
And then, in 1982, he released Thriller.
Thriller. Even saying that word, it just carries weight.
It is almost impossible to properly describe what Thriller did to the world. 7 out of 9 tracks reached the top 10. But Michael's vision wasn't just about radio. He wanted to conquer eyes as well as ears. And so he did something that nobody had done before. He turned music videos into genuine cinematic art.
And at the time, MTV, which was this exciting new music video network, was facing serious criticism for essentially not playing videos by Black artists. The racial gatekeeping was real, and it was ugly.
And Michael smashed through that door with Billie Jean first, this incredible, almost noirish video, then Beat It, and then the masterpiece, the 14-minute horror musical short film for Thriller itself.
14 minutes, with zombies, choreographed dance sequences, a full horror movie narrative, a Vincent Price voiceover. It was unlike anything anyone had ever done for a song. It changed the entertainment industry permanently.
But if there is one single moment that defined Michael Jackson's mythology, one moment where the entire world tilted on its axis, it was May 16, 1983, the Motown 25 television special.
Okay, set the scene for people who haven't seen it.
So Michael comes out on stage, black sequin jacket, silver glove on one hand, those famous high-water pants that showed off his white socks, and he performed Billie Jean. And then, during the instrumental bridge, he did something.
He slid backward.
He slid backward across the stage, effortlessly, like gravity simply didn't apply to him. The moonwalk.
And the audience, these are seasoned entertainment professionals, musicians, producers. They completely lost their minds. People were on their feet screaming.
In those maybe 3 seconds of sliding, Michael Jackson went from being a superstar, which he already was, to something else entirely, something mythological.
He became a figure that didn't feel fully human. That's the only way to describe it.
And what followed, Bad in 1987, Dangerous in 1991, only cemented the legend. His live shows stopped being concerts. They were something closer to religious experiences. People would literally faint just from the sight of him standing still on stage.
Standing. Still. Not dancing, not singing. Just standing.
Just existing on a stage and people are overwhelmed.
And here's something I really want people to sit with, because it's genuinely staggering when you think about it today. Michael Jackson achieved this absolute, total worldwide fame without the internet.
Without the internet, without social media, without YouTube, without algorithms pushing his content to you at 3 in the morning.
The 1980s were a very different world. It was still the Cold War era. Geography, politics, limited media. The world was fragmented in ways we can barely imagine now. There were no smartphones, no streaming.
And yet, if you went to a remote village in the Amazon rainforest, a rural town in India, a street in Tokyo, behind the Iron Curtain in Soviet Russia, They knew Michael Jackson, his face, his moves, his music.
His music traveled through bootleg cassette tapes passed from hand to hand, VHS recordings of his videos played in local cafes, posters on walls, word of mouth traveling across borders and languages.
He transcended language, he transcended race, he transcended geopolitics. In a world where you literally had to rely on radio signals and broadcast television, he became the most recognized human face on Earth.
When his black or white video premiered in 1991, 500 million people watched it simultaneously on television. 500 million at the same time.
That is a number that will never happen again. That kind of unified global moment, a monoculture, where one person captures literally 500 million viewers at once. The way the world works now, fragmented across 1,000 platforms and 1 million content creators, that cannot happen anymore.
He was truly a unifying human event, and that required a level of pure, raw magnetism and talent that algorithms cannot manufacture.
But as this fame reached supernatural heights, something else was happening in parallel: the darkness.
The media's obsession with Michael turned genuinely malicious. He became, in a very real sense, a prisoner of his own success. He could not walk into a grocery store. He could not go anywhere in public without causing a riot.
And that level of total isolation from normal human life, it bred eccentricities, and the tabloids absolutely feasted on them.
The chimpanzee named Bubbles, the rumored hyperbaric oxygen chamber, the reported attempt to buy the bones of the Elephant Man. The press had a field day.
And they gave him that nickname, Wacko Jacko, which he hated. He truly, deeply hated that name.
And then there was his appearance, which became this whole separate public conversation that was almost entirely wrong.
Through the late 80s and into the 90s, Michael's skin gradually became much lighter, and the public and media jumped to this very cruel conclusion that he was bleaching his skin because he was ashamed of being black.
Which was not true.
Which was not true. Michael had vitiligo, an autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks and destroys the pigment-producing cells in the skin. It creates patches and it spreads. It was confirmed by his own autopsy.
To cope with the uneven blotching and patches, he used makeup to even out his skin tone, and as the disease progressed and more pigment was lost, the overall appearance changed dramatically.
He transcended language. He transcended race. He transcended geopolitics. In a world where you literally had to rely on radio signals and broadcast television, he became the most recognized human face on Earth.
When his black or white video premiered in 1991, 500 million people watched it simultaneously on television. 500 million at the same time.
That is a number that will never happen again. That kind of unified global moment, a monoculture where one person captures literally 500 million viewers at once, the way the world works now, fragmented across 1,000 platforms and 1 million content creators, that cannot happen anymore.
He was truly a unifying human event, and that required a level of pure, raw magnetism and talent that algorithms cannot manufacture.
But as this fame reached supernatural heights, something else was happening in parallel: the darkness.
The media's obsession with Michael turned genuinely malicious. He became, in a very real sense, a prisoner of his own success. He could not walk into a grocery store. He could not go anywhere in public without causing a riot.
And that level of total isolation from normal human life, it bred eccentricities, and the tabloids absolutely feasted on them. The chimpanzee named Bubbles, the rumored hyperbaric oxygen chamber, the reported attempt to buy the bones of the Elephant Man. The press had a field day. And they gave him that nickname, Wacko Jacko, which he hated. He truly, deeply hated that name.
And then there was his appearance, which became this whole separate public conversation that was almost entirely wrong.
Through the late 80s and into the 90s, Michael's skin gradually became much lighter, and the public and media jumped to this very cruel conclusion that he was bleaching his skin because he was ashamed of being black.
Which was not true.
Which was not true. Michael had vitiligo, an autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks and destroys the pigment-producing cells in the skin. It creates patches, and it spreads. It was confirmed by his own autopsy.
To cope with the uneven blotching and patches, he used makeup to even out his skin tone. And as the disease progressed and more pigment was lost, the overall appearance changed dramatically.
But instead of compassion, the public gave him mockery and accusations of self-hatred, which had to be incredibly painful.
And simultaneously, remember Joe Jackson calling him Big Nose all those years? That wound never healed. Michael began having plastic surgery, multiple procedures over many years, reshaping his nose, his face, always chasing some idea of perfection that he couldn't reach.
It's like his physical transformation was this external map of his internal pain. He was trying to sculpt away the frightened, insecure little boy from Gary, Indiana.
And then came Neverland.
Neverland Ranch, which was, in its way, one of the most poignant things about Michael Jackson. He bought this enormous 2,700-acre estate and filled it with a theme park, a zoo, a movie theater, a train. Everything a childhood should have. Everything he never had.
He called it Neverland after Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up. And Michael genuinely saw himself in that character. He said children's innocence was pure and healing to him.
But this Peter Pan existence led to the darkest chapters of his life. In 1993 and again in 2005, Michael was accused of child sexual abuse, and these accusations shattered him publicly.
He vehemently denied everything. And in 2005, after an incredibly grueling criminal trial, he was acquitted on all charges by a jury.
But acquittal in a courtroom doesn't undo what happens in the court of public opinion. The damage was real, and it was permanent.
The man who walked out of that Santa Maria courthouse in 2005, he was a ghost. He was in debt, he was physically frail, he was emotionally broken.
He abandoned Neverland, said the police raids on it had violated something sacred about the place for him, and then he just wandered. Bahrain, Europe, Las Vegas, years of nomadic existence.
And to cope with the chronic physical pain from decades of extreme performance, from an old burn injury on his scalp from a Pepsi commercial accident back in 1984, and from the psychological devastation, he became heavily dependent on prescription painkillers and sleep medications.
A man who brought the whole world joy, unable to sleep, unable to quiet his own mind.
And yet, by 2009, there were signs of a comeback. He announced This Is It, a massive residency of 50 concerts at the O2 Arena in London, and the response was extraordinary.
Tickets sold out in minutes. Actual minutes. The whole world wanted to see Michael Jackson live again.
And he was rehearsing. For weeks in Los Angeles, he was rehearsing. People who saw those rehearsals said he still had it, that the magic was still very much alive in his 50-year-old body.
But behind the scenes, the chronic insomnia was destroying him. He could not sleep. He was desperate.
And so his personal physician began administering propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, to help him sleep. Not a sleep aid, an anesthetic used in operating rooms.
On the morning of June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson suffered cardiac arrest. He was 50 years old.
50.
When the news broke, something happened that was almost fitting for a man of his legend. The sheer volume of people simultaneously searching for confirmation online was so massive that Google News crashed. Their systems initially thought they were being hit by a coordinated cyber attack.
Twitter crashed. Wikipedia crashed. The man who had conquered the entire globe without the internet, in his death, brought the internet to its knees.
And that says everything, doesn't it, about the scale of who he was?
You know, what strikes me most when I look back at his whole story, it's the contrast, the sheer, almost impossible contrast of it all.
He was the most famous person on the planet, and quite possibly one of the loneliest.
He gave the entire world pure joy and struggled to find a single, quiet, peaceful moment of it for himself.
He was a man who sacrificed his own childhood so the world could dance.
And here's what I keep coming back to. His mystique is unmatchable not just because of the talent, which was extraordinary. It's unmatchable because of the combination of things that will never align again.
A multidisciplinary genius, master vocalist, revolutionary dancer, visionary filmmaker, all in one person. That alone is rare to the point of impossible.
Then add the fact that he built this godlike global fame in a pre-internet world through pure magnetism and word of mouth. No algorithm can recreate that. No viral moment can replicate it.
And then the tragedy, the depth of the human suffering that existed underneath all the sequins and the spotlight. It makes his story not just impressive, but genuinely heartbreaking.
When you watch him perform, really watch him, there's a moment where you stop analyzing and you just feel it. You feel this person who, for those minutes on stage, had completely outrun every demon that was chasing him.
Like, for those moments, the pain stopped, the fear stopped, the loneliness stopped, and he was just pure living art.
A flawed, deeply wounded human being who lived his entire life inside a glittering cage, and still, he gave the world magic.
And that, I think, is why we're still talking about him, why we'll always be talking about him.
Because what he created doesn't age, it doesn't fade. You put on Billie Jean right now in any corner of the world and something happens.
Something always happens.
All right, thank you so much for spending this time with us today, truly.
Thank you for watching. It genuinely means a lot to us. And before we go, we want to hear from you. What topic do you want us to cover next? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one. See you next time.